The sun streamed into my kitchen, casting warm rays across the countertop, illuminating the chaos of the breakfast prep. I stood there, my hands busy slicing bananas, my mind wandering through the familiar rhythm of my life. It was a Saturday, and Jake was still sleeping. The house was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the distant chirping of birds outside. I took a deep breath, savoring the aroma of brewing coffee, a small comfort in our busy lives. "Jake, time to wake up," I called out, my voice carrying through the hallway. I had learned to embrace the little routines that made our life feel normal. I poured a bowl of cereal and set the table, the clinking of dishes punctuating the stillness. I could hear him shuffling around in his room, a sound that had become so comforting over the years. Yeah, I'm coming," he replied, his tone playful yet muffled. Jake was 17, a teenager navigating a world that felt unfathomably complex. But in our home, we had a special bond, built on laughter and shared interests. He would often assist me in the kitchen, cracking jokes, or recounting events from school that made me chuckle. "I've got your favorite, banana pancakes," I announced, knowing that would get him moving. A few moments later, he stumbled into the kitchen, his hair tousled, and his eyes still heavy with sleep. "Do I smell pancakes?" he asked, a sleepy grin spreading across his face. It was moments like these that reminded me of the joys of motherhood. "Only the best for my favorite son," I teased, flipping a pancake with flair. He rolled his eyes, but I noticed the corners of his mouth twitching upwards. "I guess I'll let you slide this time," he shot back, plopping down at the table. "But you owe me a movie marathon later." "Deal. But only if you promise to pick a good one this time," I laughed, pouring syrup over the golden pancakes. As we dug in, we shared our usual banter, a lightness enveloping us both. Later that night, after a full day of laughter and a movie marathon that had stretched into the early hours, I found myself curled up on the couch, exhausted. The flickering images on the screen blurred, and I surrendered to the weight of my eyelids. The house was silent, the kind of calm that wraps around you like a warm blanket. My dreams were hazy, filled with laughter and light when I felt a presence beside me. I stirred slightly, the warmth of the room mingling with an unfamiliar sensation. Just as I began to drift deeper into sleep, I felt something soft and unexpected. A kiss, gentle and lingering, pressed against my lips. I jolted awake, confusion washing over me. My heart raced as my eyes snapped open, and I realized Jake was leaning over me, his expression a mix of uncertainty and something else I couldn't quite place. "Jake," I breathed, my voice thick with confusion. "What was that?" He straightened up, a flush creeping up his cheeks, and for a moment, the air between us thickened with unspoken words. I don't know. I thought it might be different," he stammered, his gaze dropping to the floor, a mix of shame and vulnerability swirling in his dark eyes. I sat up, pulling my knees to my chest, grappling with the whirlwind of emotions that surged within me. "Different? What do you mean?" The question hung heavy in the air, as my mind raced to process the implications of what had just occurred. I didn't think. "I'm sorry, Mom," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. The innocence of the moment shattered, leaving behind a fragile tension I had never felt before. "Jake, we need to talk about this," I said, my heart thudding in my chest. I wanted to reach out, to comfort him, but something held me back, a mix of fear and protectiveness. "Can we just forget it happened?" he pleaded, his eyes darting to mine, searching for understanding. I swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling in my heart. "I don't think we can just forget, not after that." As I looked at him, the boy I had raised, I realized that our lives would never be the same again. The kiss had opened a door to a world filled with complexities I was not sure I was ready to face. The air felt thick with uncertainty, and I knew that whatever came next would challenge everything I thought I understood about love, loyalty, and the bond between a mother and her son. I woke up to the soft light filtering through the curtains, the memories of last night flooding back like a wave crashing against the shore, Jake's kiss still echoing in my mind. My heart raced as I recalled the moment I stirred awake, confusion and shock coursing through me. I sat up in bed, the sheets tangled around my legs, my mind racing with a million thoughts, none of which seemed to make any sense. What had just happened? I stumbled into the kitchen, the smell of coffee filling the air. Jake was already up, sitting at the table, his phone in hand, scrolling with a nonchalant expression that didn't match the turmoil inside me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Jake," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "We need to talk about last night." He looked up, his eyes widening for a brief moment before he quickly masked it with a shrug. "It was just a mistake, Mom. I was half asleep." His voice was casual, but there was a tension in the air, a weight that hung between us. "A mistake?" I echoed, disbelief creeping into my tone. "You kissed me, Jake. You don't just kiss someone by accident." My heart raced as I felt the heat rising in my cheeks. "Can we just drop it?" he replied, irritation creeping into his voice. "It was weird, okay? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to freak you out." He glanced back at his phone, avoiding my gaze, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. "Freak me out?" I couldn't hide the hurt in my voice. "This isn't just something you can brush off." It felt different. It felt like there was something behind it. I stepped closer, my heart aching at the sight of my son, who was caught between childhood and adulthood, struggling to navigate his feelings. "Jake, we can talk about this. I'm here for you," he sighed, his frustration palpable. I said it was a mistake. His tone was sharper now, and I could see his defenses rising, walls being built to keep me out. "Can't we just pretend it didn't happen? Pretend it didn't happen?" I repeated, my heart sinking. "This isn't just something we can forget about. It's about us, our relationship." I took a step back, feeling the weight of his words and the distance growing between us. "I don't want to discuss it." His voice was louder now, echoing off the walls. "I'm fine, Mom. Just let it go." He pushed his chair back, the sound grating on my nerves as he stormed out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there, feeling helpless and abandoned. The rest of the day was a blur of chores and distractions, but my mind was consumed with thoughts of Jake and the kiss that lingered like an uninvited guest. I needed to talk to someone to find a way to make sense of everything. That's when I decided to call Lisa. "Rachel, what's going on?" Lisa asked, her voice warm and inviting as she picked up the phone. I could hear the clatter of her kids in the background, a comforting sound that reminded me of the life I had chosen, the life I fought for every day. "It's about Jake." I started, my voice shaky. "Something happened last night, and I don't know how to handle it." I poured out my heart to her, telling her about the kiss and the whirlwind of emotions that followed. "I just feel so confused, Lisa. I don't know if I should be angry or worried or what." "Rachel," she said gently, "this is a big deal. You need to tread carefully. Jake is at a stage where he's exploring his identity, and that kiss, it could mean a lot of things. You both need to talk about it, but you also need to protect your relationship. I just don't want to ruin what we have," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. "He's my son, and I love him. I can't lose him over this." "Then be honest with him, but also be cautious," Lisa advised. "You might find that this leads to deeper conversations, ones you both need to have." I hung up the phone, her words swirling in my mind. How could I navigate this delicate situation without losing Jake? As dusk began to settle, I gathered the courage to approach him again. I found him in his room, sitting on the floor surrounded by old family photos, memories that seemed to echo the innocence of his childhood. "Hey, can I join you?" I asked softly, sensing the vulnerability in the air. He looked up, his expression a mixture of surprise and apprehension, but he nodded. I settled down beside him, the familiar feeling of nostalgia washing over me as I glanced at the pictures. Do you remember this one? I pointed to a photo of us at the beach, Jake grinning with sand all over his face. A small smile broke through his troubled expression. Yeah, I was such a dork. He laughed, the sound a balm to my frayed nerves. Not a dork, I corrected playfully. You were adorable. I paused, the weight of our earlier conversation settling back in. Jake, can we talk about last night? I really think we need to. He hesitated, his gaze drifting back to the photos. Can we just enjoy this moment first? I don't want to think about that right now. I nodded, respecting his need to process. But as I watched him, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was so much more beneath the surface, unresolved feelings that we both needed to confront. The days that followed the kiss felt heavy, like an unyielding fog settling over my home. I tried to act normal, to carry on with our routine, but the air was thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Jake had changed. I could see it in the way he moved through the house, his once easy laughter replaced by a newfound confidence that both intrigued and worried me. One afternoon, I stood in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, when I heard the sound of the basketball bouncing outside. I glanced through the window, watching Jake shoot hoops in the driveway. The sun cast a golden glow around him, and for a moment he looked so carefree, so young. But the way he held himself, the intensity in his posture, betrayed what was brewing beneath the surface. Hey, Mom, want to join me? He called out, his voice echoing with a bravado I hadn't heard before. I hesitated, my heart racing at the thought of being so close to him, of feeling that electric connection again. I think I'll just watch for now, I replied, forcing a smile. He shrugged, dismissing my reluctance, and continued to shoot hoops, the ball swishing through the net with satisfying precision. I couldn't help but admire him, but a knot tightened in my stomach. I was torn between wanting to engage with him and fearing what that might mean for both of us. Later that week, I decided to attend a local support group for single parents. I needed to talk to someone to unravel the confusion that had unsettled my heart. The group met in a cozy community center, and as I settled into a seat, I felt a sense of vulnerability wash over me. During the session, I shared my story, the weight of my struggles spilling out like a long-held breath. It was cathartic, and as I spoke, I noticed a man across the room listening intently. His name was Mark. With his easy smile and genuine interest, he seemed to draw me in like a moth to a flame. After the session, he approached me. You shared something really powerful today, he said, his voice warm. It takes a lot of courage to be open like that. Thank you. I'm just trying to navigate this new life, I replied, feeling a spark of connection in our exchange. Would you like to grab coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about your journey, he suggested, his eyes sincere. I hesitated, the thought of moving on feeling both exciting and terrifying, but there was a flicker of hope in Mark's presence that I hadn't felt in a long time. Sure, that sounds nice, I said, surprising myself with my willingness to embrace this new possibility. As I drove home, a mix of emotions swirled within me. I felt a lightness, a sense of freedom that was foreign yet exhilarating. But as soon as I walked through the door, the familiar tension returned. Jake was in my room, rifling through some old boxes I had left unopened since his father had moved out. What are you doing in here? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral, though anxiety gnawed at me. He snapped his head up, his expression a mix of surprise and irritation. Just looking, he shot back, his voice sharper than usual. Looking for what? I pressed gently, stepping closer. None of your business, Mom, he barked, throwing an old photo onto the floor. It landed face up, and I recognized the image. It was of our family, taken at the beach during happier times. Jake, that's not fair, I said, my heart sinking. I'm just trying to understand. What's going on with you? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration radiating off him. "You wouldn't understand," he yelled, and I felt the sting of his words like a slap. "Try me," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You can talk to me about anything." He paused, the tension in the room palpable. "It's not that simple, okay? You think you know everything, but you don't." I took a step back, stunned by the intensity of his outburst. I felt the walls closing in, the ghost of that kiss haunting us both. "Jake, please, just tell me what's wrong." He looked away, the vulnerability in his eyes mixed with defiance. I don't know how to deal with all of this." "Neither do I admitted, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "But we can figure it out together." He remained silent, and the distance between us felt insurmountable. I realized that what lay beneath the surface was far more complex than I had ever imagined. As I turned to leave, I knew this was just the beginning of a deeper struggle, one that would challenge everything I thought I understood about love and loyalty. I could hear the muffled sound of Jake's music drifting from his room, a mix of angst and rebellion that mirrored my own turbulent emotions. It had been a few days since the kiss, an act that had unraveled the very fabric of our lives. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart as I pondered my next move. I had decided to take charge, to reclaim some semblance of normalcy, and that meant stepping into the world of dating again. Mark had entered my life like a breath of fresh air. Our chemistry was undeniable, igniting feelings I thought had long been extinguished. I could feel the flutter of excitement when I saw his name pop up on my phone, and the way he looked at me made me feel alive again. But with every laugh we shared, every moment of connection, an undercurrent of guilt gnawed at my insides. What would Jake think? Would he feel abandoned? That evening, I found myself curled up on the couch, phone pressed to my ear, the soft glow of the screen illuminating my face. Mark's voice was warm and inviting, pulling me into a world where my worries faded away. "Rachel, I can't wait to see you again. How about dinner tomorrow night?" His words wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. Just as I was about to respond, I heard a thud from the hallway, followed by the unmistakable sound of Jake's door swinging open. My heart sank. I turned my head toward the sound, my stomach twisting into knots. I could practically feel the tension in the air as Jake stepped into the living room, his brow furrowed with a mix of confusion and annoyance. "Mom, who are you talking to?" he demanded, crossing his arms defensively. The innocence of his tone was gone, replaced by something sharper, more accusatory. I quickly tried to redirect my thoughts, my heart pounding. "Just a friend, Jake. Everything okay?" "Yeah, sure, a friend." He rolled his eyes, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Sounds like you're having a lot of fun without me." "Jake, it's not like that," I said, my voice strained. "You know I'm here for you, right? Do you?" He stepped closer, a fire igniting in his eyes. "Because it feels like you're more interested in dating than being my mom." His words struck me like a punch to the gut. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, I felt the weight of my choices pressing down on me. "I'm trying to find balance, Jake," I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm trying to live my life, too." Jake scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. "You think this is living? Abandoning me? For some guy?" The hurt in his voice cut deeper than I expected. "Jake, that's not fair." I snapped, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. "This isn't about abandoning you. I need to be happy too." "Happiness? Is that what this is?" he shot back. "Because it feels like you're just leaving me behind." I could see the anger boiling over in him, but beneath it, there was something else. Fear. Fear of losing our bond, of me moving on without him. "I'm not going anywhere. You're my son, and you always will be," I said, my voice softer now, almost pleading. But Jake turned away, his shoulders tense. "You don't get it." He walked toward his room, leaving me standing there, my heart heavy with regret. As I sank back onto the couch, I felt the weight of his words linger in the air. I picked up my phone, scrolling through the messages from Mark, and suddenly I felt a wave of uncertainty wash over me. Was I really doing the right thing? That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I had tried to be a good mother, to balance my own needs with those of my son, but now it felt like I was walking a tightrope, teetering on the edge of something I couldn't quite grasp. The next day, I stumbled upon Jake's journal while cleaning his room, a small brown book tucked away under his bed. My heart raced as I picked it up, curiosity mingling with apprehension. I knew I shouldn't invade his privacy, but the gnawing need to understand what he was feeling overpowered my hesitation. As I flipped through the pages, my breath caught in my throat. His words were raw and unfiltered, expressions of confusion, anger, and a longing that shook me to my core. The entries revealed his struggles with identity, the weight of expectations, and the complicated feelings he had for me. Tears stung my eyes as I read about his loneliness, his desire for connection, and the fear of losing me. Sometimes I wish things were different, one entry read. I don't know how to talk to her about what I feel. It's like I'm trapped in my own head. I closed the journal, my heart racing. I had thought I was the one struggling, but Jake was fighting his own battles, ones I had never fully understood. I felt a mix of sorrow and determination wash over me. I couldn't let this rift between us grow any wider. I had to find a way to reach him, to help him navigate through the darkness that surrounded him, even if it meant facing my own fears. I sat on the edge of Jake's bed, the journal open in my lap, its pages filled with his scrawled thoughts and confessions. The air in the room felt heavy, thick with unsaid words and unresolved emotions. Jake stood by the window, his back to me, staring out into the fading light of the evening. The tension between us was palpable, like a taut string ready to snap. "Why didn't you tell me?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. I wondered if he even heard me. He remained silent, the weight of his silence pressing down on my chest. "Jake," I pressed on. "This is important. I need to understand what you're feeling." He turned to face me, his eyes filled with a storm of emotions, anger, confusion, vulnerability. "You wouldn't understand, Mom. You don't know what it's like to feel this way, to question everything about yourself." His fists were clenched at his sides, the muscles in his jaw tight. "Try me," I urged, my heart racing. I had to keep my composure, to show him that I was here for him, no matter how difficult the conversation might be. "I want to understand. I want to help you." He took a deep breath, his shoulders slumping slightly. "It's just, I've been feeling things I shouldn't feel, things about you." His gaze dropped to the floor, as if the weight of his confession was too much to bear. "I didn't mean to kiss you. I didn't mean to cross that line. He paused, struggling to find the words. "I don't know who I am, and I thought maybe if I could just, maybe it would help." My heart sank. I had been wrestling with my own feelings about that night, grappling with the implications of his kiss and the connection we shared. "Jake, it's okay to be confused. It's okay to not have all the answers right now. But you need to know that I love you, no matter what." He looked up at me, tears shimmering in his eyes. "But what if that love isn't enough? What if it's wrong?" His voice trembled, and I could see the turmoil within him, a boy caught between childhood and adulthood, between love and guilt. "Love is complicated," I admitted, feeling the weight of my own secrets pressing on my chest. "But it doesn't have to be wrong. We can talk about this, find a way through it together." He shook his head, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You don't get it. You're my mom. This isn't supposed to happen. I just want to feel normal again." "Normal?" I echoed, my heart aching for him. What does that even mean? "Life isn't normal, Jake. It's messy and unpredictable. You're allowed to feel what you feel, but we need to set some boundaries. We need to figure out how to navigate this without losing each other. He stepped closer, the air between us charged with unspoken tension. I don't want to lose you either, but I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. I reached out to him, my hand resting on his arm. We'll figure it out together, but I need you to be honest with me. Can you do that? He nodded slowly, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. I'll try. Later that night, I found myself sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the television, unable to focus on anything but our earlier conversation. I needed to reach out to Lisa, my best friend. She always had a way of making things clearer, of helping me see things from a different perspective. Lisa, can we talk? I said when she answered the phone. Of course. What's going on? Her voice was warm and inviting, a balm to my frazzled nerves. I had a conversation with Jake. It didn't go how I expected, I admitted, my voice shaky. Tell me everything, she urged, her tone serious. As I recounted our discussion, Lisa listened intently. When I finished, she let out a slow breath. Rachel, it sounds like you both need to establish some boundaries. It's crucial, especially given what's happened. But how do I do that without pushing him away? I questioned, feeling the weight of my responsibilities as a mother pressing down on me. Be supportive, but make it clear that you're his mother first. Let him know you're there for him, but that certain lines shouldn't be crossed, she advised. Thank you, Lisa. I don't want to lose him, I confessed, my voice breaking. You won't. Just take it one step at a time, she reassured me. After hanging up, I felt a mix of resolve and fear. I had to be strong for Jake to help him navigate this storm of emotions. But the thought of potential heartache loomed over me, a shadow I couldn't shake off. As the night wore on, I tried to calm my racing thoughts, holding on to the hope that we could find our way through this together. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was far from over, and that more challenges awaited us. Panic surged through me as I darted from room to room, calling Jake's name. The house felt suffocatingly silent, the ghost of our recent arguments reverberating in every corner. I had called his friends and neighbors, but no one had seen him. My heart raced as I envisioned the worst, my mind spiraling into a whirlwind of fear and anxiety. Where could he be? I murmured to myself, clutching my phone tightly, the screen shining like a beacon in the dim light of the living room. I glanced out the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of him walking toward home, but the street remained empty, bathed in the ominous glow of streetlights. As night fell, the world outside grew darker, and so did my thoughts. The community had rallied around me, neighbors offering their support, but all I felt was a gnawing sense of dread. I stood at the door, looking out into the night, my heart pounding. I could hear the distant sounds of laughter from nearby houses, families enjoying their evenings, and I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of isolation. Rachel, you need to stay calm, I told myself, but the words felt hollow. The phone buzzed in my pocket, and I jumped, pulling it out with trembling hands. An unknown number flashed on the screen, and my heart raced with a mix of hope and fear. Hello, I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. Mom. Jake's voice came through the line, shaky and distant. Relief flooded over me, but it quickly gave way to worry as I heard the tremor in his tone. Jake, where are you? Are you okay? I rushed out, my breath hitching in my throat. I'm safe, but I can't come home yet, he said, his voice breaking. What do you mean you can't come home? Please, just tell me where you are. I'm so scared. I felt tears prick my eyes as the weight of his absence pressed down on me. I found out some things, Mom, things that I need to figure out first. Please, just trust me. I need some time. His words hung heavy in the air, each syllable laced with a gravity I couldn't fully understand. Jake, what things? What do you mean? I pressed, my heart racing with questions. I can't explain it all right now, but there are secrets things about you, about us that I have to come to terms with, he said hesitantly. Secrets? What secrets? My mind raced, trying to piece together what he could possibly mean. I'll explain everything when I'm ready, I promise. Just don't worry about me. I'll be okay. He sounded so small, yet so resolute. I'll always worry about you, I replied, my voice trembling. Just please come home soon. We can face this together. Not yet, Mom. I just need a little more time. I love you, he said, and the line went silent. I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest, the finality of his words hitting me like a freight train. I felt a mix of relief and despair, knowing he was safe but unsure of what that meant for us. As I was about to put my phone down, it buzzed again, startling me. Another message. I opened it, my breath hitching as I stared at the image that loaded. It was a photo of Jake, but he wasn't alone. There was someone beside him, someone I never expected to see him with, a face from my past, a face I had long tried to forget. Panic hit me again, a cold wave sweeping over me. Who was this person? What connection did they have to Jake? And what secrets had he uncovered that could change everything? I felt the walls closing in around me as I stared at the screen, the implications of that photo swirling in my mind. The darkness of the night outside seemed to echo the turmoil within me. I sank onto the couch, my heart racing with dread, the phone still clutched tightly in my hand. Questions ricocheted in my mind, each one more pressing than the last. I was left in a haze of confusion, the weight of my own past now crashing into the present. Would I ever truly understand what was happening between us? And more importantly, would I be able to protect him from the secrets that threatened to tear us apart?